Got a question for you. When does 2 plus 2 not equal 4? Well, some say it's when Common Core is followed.
You have probably heard of Common Core. You may have even heard how teachers and parents are speaking out either for it or against it.
But do you know what Common Core is? WBOC's Corrina Sweeps joins us this afternoon with more. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Okay, for those who don't know what it is, give us an overview of Common Core.
Sure. Common Core is basically educational standards. The idea behind this is to standardize education so that if you're a student in Maryland, you're going to be at the same place that a student in Florida is. So basically it's changed how children are taught when it comes to math and reading. There's a whole collaborative element. It's more of a student-centered classroom. Technology is really integral. So things are a lot different now.
And there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer in the whole thing. I mean, we were saying, when does 2 plus 2 not equal 4?
Exactly. So the idea is to allow students to be more creative. Basically, there's not just one way to get to an answer. They're taught multiple strategies, multiple ways of problem solving. So you're getting ultimately the right answer, but the way that you get there might be a little different.
Okay. So is this Maryland, Delaware, Virginia?
Exactly. This
all the way
was,
through.
well, not all the way through. 5 states chose not to adopt Common Core. Virginia was one of them. These standards were adopted in 2010 by both Maryland and Delaware and other states, and implemented this year in Maryland. So we're seeing a lot of changes.
So this really changes how our kids are taught, doesn't it?
It really does. Like I said, technology is really the focus. And when you think about the way that you and I have been taught, it's completely different now because, again, the idea is allow these children to think for themselves, allow them to be more creative and to be problem solvers. So it's a little bit of a different approach.
And it's controversial. There are people for it,
is.
people against it. What are some of the pros and cons on that?
Well, when you think about it, this is change. And when there's change and children are involved and our schools are involved, of course there's going to be controversy. There are some people that say this is great. This is going to allow our children to ultimately be better thinkers and go out into the world and better problem solvers, work together, things like that. Then there are other people who say, well, wait a second, especially parents, this isn't how I was taught. So my children are coming home, I have no idea what's going on here, I can't help them. So there's kind of a disconnect there. They're seeing some children struggling, so there are definitely two sides.
Now, you spoke to some teachers who actually like it and are seeing results, right?
Exactly. I went over to Snow Hill Elementary School, and it was pretty amazing to see this community that they're kind of thriving in. The principal there says that they're seeing measurable results. They're seeing students' test scores go up. They're also seeing office referrals go down. So some behavioral issues are being corrected there because the principal there says that children are so engaged with learning because of Common Core.
But you've got some parents who are saying, no, this doesn't work. Did they tell you why?
They did tell me why. I mean, like I mentioned before, there is kind of that disconnect. Parents are saying, I don't understand this. This isn't how I was taught. And we'll kind of get a little more into that and then some of the other reasons, and some parents even taking drastic measures when it comes to their opposition of Common Core.
Really?
All right,
And,
we'll learn
got
more
this one coming
tonight.
up.
Looking forward to that,
Thank you.
Corrina.
Thank you.
The Common Core debate, that's happening tonight on WBOC News at 11. But before then, you know what's coming up.
Yep.
It's time for a showdown in the kitchen.
We're ready.
A little later on Delmarva Life, it's you and WBOC Steve Hammond against Jimmy and I. We have a 5-minute recipe challenge. We're going to see, actually, we're going to show you how it's done. That's coming up.
All right,
Probably
that's
don't want
tough
to follow the way we do. But anyway, up next, we just learned about Common Core, but school is a lot more than just reading, writing, and arithmetic. Oftentimes, it's sell, sell, sell. We're going to learn more about how school fundraisers can impact students and parents.
But first, we continue to celebrate Black History Month by telling the stories of those who made an impact on history. And we're from right here on Delmarva.
Here's Brian Spiros with more on Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass was a writer, statesman, and social reformer. But those accomplishments didn't come easily. Douglass was born in Talbot County in 1818. At the age of 6, he began working as a slave at Wye House. Douglas was eventually sent to Baltimore to work. According to historians, this is where a slave owner's wife taught Douglas how to read, which instilled in him the desire to learn. During his time as a slave, Douglas planned several escapes, which landed him in jail. In 1838, he was finally able to flee to the north, where he found freedom. Years later, Douglas became an anti-slavery speaker and published abolitionist newspapers. He also began speaking out about women's suffrage during the Civil War and became very close with President Abraham Lincoln. Because of his connection to Talbot County, members of the Frederick Douglass Honor Society paid tribute to their native son by erecting this statue in 2011. It sits right in front of the courthouse in Easton. The statue captures a moment from 1878 when Douglas came to town to speak as a free man. Douglas died in 1895 at the age of 77. A life that began with so much hardship ended with so many profound accomplishments. A true example of the stories celebrated during Black History Month.